On this episode of Through the Pines, we'll discuss how to build a winning business plan, including what is an annual business plan and why do you need an annual business plan? What are the benefits that you could see from a business plan? And then finally, how do you write the plan, like your mission and vision statement, past goals, year in review, the current state of business, future goals, and the activities needed to achieve those goals. Welcome to a financial planning podcast with a down-to-earth vibe. Sasquatch listens while puffing on his Beehive branded cigar. This is Through the Pines. Our advisors for this episode, we welcome back Brandyn and Rex Baxter from PlanWithBaxter.com. They are the 2023 and 2024 Forbes Best in-State Wealth Management Teams for Utah, the Advisors Hub fastest growing advisors to watch under $1 billion, and the receivers of the Ameriprise Client Experience Award, which means they know what they're talking about. Welcome, Rex and Brandyn.
Thank you.
To the show. Yeah. Rex, I hear this is something that you're good at, this building a business plan, or at least that you do. Because I'm going to admit that I don't build a business plan for me personally, even though I have a business, but the business is very small. It's like 2 people. So yes, Brandyn.
Let me just talk about how much Rex likes business planning. Here we go. So before I joined Rex, I knew Rex, and I remember
you knew him from his business plan
for 6 years before, and I remember asking him one after New Year, like, "Oh, how was your break?" He's like, "Oh, good. I got a lot of business planning." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Oh yeah." Anyway, it turns out Rex is kind of famous among the office, right?
Okay.
For his business plan. In fact, his business plan comes in at about 30 pages. I'm not sure what it is this year. The one I was just looking at was 31 Word document pages, right? And it's very comprehensive. And I don't think we're recommending that everybody need to do a 30-page.
No, but
document.
Rex, do you use graphics and stuff?
Yeah. A picture's worth 1,000 words. You got to have some graphics. I like to think of my business plan as much of a business plan as also kind of an annual report.
Yeah.
And so that's how it started back 27 years ago when I started doing them, which was my first year in the business when I started doing them. Because I wanted to make sure I understood what I was good at, what I wasn't good at, how I could get better at things. I wanted to have a record, just kind of historically of my business, because I knew that I wanted to be in this business for a long, long time. And I wanted to be able to look back to see where I was at when. And so that's kind of how it all started.
Yeah, so it's like an annual journal for you.
Yeah.
I like that. Sounds so much more approachable.
A little more enhanced.
Yeah, than like a business plan. I like annual journal way better.
But it's more than a journal, right? It's looking back at the past, saying, "Hey, what did we do? How did we do? Where are we at today?" And then what do we want to do in the future, and how are we going to get there?
Okay.
Right? And so it's really quite structured.
Yeah.
But it's a very methodical way of understanding, what has worked in the past, what are we doing now, and where do we want to be?
So for benefits of this podcast, are we talking a personal business plan, or are we talking for your business plan?
So I think that for today's podcast, that this will be really good for small business owners, small corporations, right, that have 5 employees, 10 employees, 20 employees, something like that, but fairly small. Professional corporations, so CPAs, attorneys, real estate agents, insurance agents, things along those lines. And then I think it can be translated, you have to read between the lines a little bit, but I think it can be translated to your personal financial situation, if you choose to, and your personal life, as far as how you approach your personal goals and things on those lines.
Very helpful. So then, I guess defining it is the first thing. Rex, how would you define, or what is a business plan?
So for me, a business plan is on my business plan, again, the first couple of pages are more annual report-ish, if you will. And so I kind of start with, who we are, where we're at professionally, what we've done, what our credentials are, things that fall in that kind of line, and then we kind of move through to historical things and the future and what worked last year, what didn't work last year, what's going to work this year for us, things along those. But I think we're going to go through each of those pieces, and so everybody today just have a seat, don't hold your breath, and we'll work our way through this.
I'm putting develop a business plan in my task list
for Ascent Life,
for period in general. Yeah, for the Brandyn Collective.
Okay.
Because even though, so we have, we don't really have any employees. There's a couple of owners, and we have a couple of people that we hire on the side to help us do things. But not employees, but contract employees.
Contractors.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so, but it'd be good to know those things. Those first things that you said. So after that, you sort of explained it, but why do you need one? Why do you need a business plan?
Well, I have a core belief that you can't accomplish your goals if you don't track things.
Okay.
And so this is my way of tracking things, one of my ways of tracking things. And I self-admittedly might have a tracking problem.
Brandyn, you can vouch. Okay, yeah.
So
you review every year then. So you go.
So it's a living document, right? Okay. So typically at the first of the year or end of the previous year, we're creating it, reviewing it as a team. Setting our goals for the upcoming year as a team, and then each month and each week, and we'll go through this, but you need to make sure that you've got smart goals, right? And we've talked about this before, but they've got to be specific and measurable and achievable and relevant and time related, and you've got to be able to track them and evaluate and repeat. And so now they're smarter goals, right? And so that's what they are. And so we want to make sure that we can take not only what we've done in the past and what our goals are for the future, but then we need to break that down to this is where we want to be at the end of the year. Where do I need to be at the end of every month? Where do I need to be at the end of every week? And what do I need to be focused on time after time? And we need to help each other be held accountable in order to achieve those goals.
And I think that's like the key to the success of your business plan is that it allows you to take a very comprehensive look at exactly what is going on. Where were our wins? Where were our losses? Where are we strong today? Right. And you really get a good look at that. You look at, what has done very well for us. And so that then we can make those goals. And then that's how that's how the document doesn't just get lost in the weeds until next year is then we take our weekly goals and the things that we want to focus on, and they're mostly derived from the business plan, right? It's derived from what's worked well for us in the past and where we're trying to get to in the future. These are the goals that we've determined as we've logically thought through it. These are the things that will get us where we want to be. And then we track those weekly. We go through those goals and we say, all right, where are we at? This week and the week following.
Okay, so that halfway answers my next question is, so you're tracking them weekly, but Rex, the goals are great, but if you don't stay on top of it, how do you track, and you track, but then how do you stay accountable to what's in the business plan? Because anyone can write the business plan and anyone can come up with those goals, but then staying accountable week after week, month after month to make sure they actually happens, because life happens and everyone gets busy and it's really hard, and then they just end up on the back burner.
Well, one, I'm not sure everybody can write a business plan.
Wow.
So I've looked at a lot of business plans, and at least a quality business plan. So okay. I think that there's a little bit of a skill involved in developing business plans.
Is this something you're going to do? Is this a new side hustle? You're
no, no, I have zero interest in creating anybody else's business plans.
Okay.
And so I think that on the trick is, one of the books that we've read as a team, and we've mentioned on this, is the 4 Disciplines of Execution, right? This is one of the Covey related books. if you will. And they talk a lot about not getting caught up in the whirlwind of life and business, and setting, kind of figuring out what your wildly important goals are for the year or for whatever the time period is, and then tracking your most important factors that will get you from where you're at today to where you want to be at. And unfortunately, typically the most important factors for most of our businesses aren't easily trackable. It's a very manual process to track a lot of those kinds of things. And so for us, that's why we have kind of a weekly accountability call, to where every week we sit down and we say, okay, for this situation, how many how many of these tasks did you get done? How many times did you go and meet with another professional during the week? How many times did you go to a networking meeting during that week? And so we've figured out, and I feel like we've done a pretty good job of figuring out the levers in our business and in our practice that we need to be able to track and be able to pull and push on in order to generate the results over the course of the year that we want to be able to achieve. And so let's start going through this a little bit in a little bit of detail, maybe.
Yeah. So in the business plan, and one thing I've just got to add, I think the beauty of taking a business plan and turning it into reportable weekly goals is it is effectively making it automatic. Like we always talk about, right? If you have a process that is in place that says, and the business plan is more than just what are our like weekly goals, but it's also us reviewing our service model. How do we make sure that our clients know that we're thinking about them and taking care of them and checking their accounts? How do we make sure that the clients we have are happy and not only happy, but really happy with what we're doing? And then how do we also make sure we can market and find and grow and find new clients? And so the business plan is kind of like the brainstorming session, the refining, the taking time to consciously think through our business. That is the business plan. And then from that, we take our goals to kind of make that automatic. And we also, not only do we have our goals, but we have our processes that will change, right? How often are we looking through different investment opportunities, and how, all of those things come from the business plan. So, but going into the business plan, so the first pages of Rex's business plan, and I'll call it Rex's. I love partly that. Mine.
Yep, he can market it and sell it later. Come on.
Ride or die. I'm going to ride or die with this business plan.
The first couple pages are mission statement, vision statement, and value proposition.
Okay, wait. I have a question. Can you repeat it? Can I put you on the spot? Do you know it?
So our mission statement is to help people retire, to more confidently retire and reach their goals.
Okay.
Is our mission.
I mean, I'll give you pretty.
We don't have it memorized.
Okay. I was just curious.
But that is something we've thought about, right? Is there should we be incorporating that into our DNA and blood, right? And we've kind of decided, maybe not.
Next
right?
question would be, does your vision or mission statement? I think those are two different things.
They are different things.
Okay.
For us.
Do they change over time?
I think they can change over time, and so this year. We're going through a longer strategic planning session. We're going to look at 10 years, 3 years, 1 year. And I think we're going to refine our mission statement as our team has grown so much. And as we continue to grow, we're going to do some refining of our mission statement and our vision statement and our value proposition, all three of those.
Okay.
I'd like to, as I was going through one of these older plans, our investment philosophy is on there, right? Which is a little bit unique to our industry, but going into risk management, try not to take more risk than necessary in order to achieve the goals. Asset allocation, diversification through asset allocation protects wealth. Portfolio concentration can both create and destroy wealth, right? These are things that we talk with clients all the time, but it's good to have this core, right? This is all the things that we do are kind of built on these ideals.
Okay.
A lot of these you've heard through a lot of our podcasts, right? You've heard me say, I don't know how many times, that concentration is the number one creator of wealth and the number one destroyer of wealth. And that's exactly part of our business plan, is trying to protect that and figure out where you're at in your investment life, as far as, are we young and we're trying to accumulate wealth and you're comfortable taking that concentration risk, or aren't you? But it all funnels back into our core beliefs and our business plan as we go through this.
Yeah, it's important to realize this isn't just a marketing plan. This isn't just a how do we grow in 2025 plan.
Yeah.
This is who are we and what do we want to offer, right? What is it that we're trying to offer to our clients? What are we trying to build that creates the business that we want to have?
And I would think for Rex, someone who is the leader of a team, this helps build camaraderie and gets everyone on the same page.
It does help everybody get together and have a common vision and a common goal so that we can galvanize everybody and kind of get on the same direction.
Because you could be thinking one thing if you don't go through this process, and your team's thinking another, and then you get frustrated later. It's like, why are you guys doing this thing that is so important to me? And it's like, well, we didn't know, or so.
That's a big thing.
Helps cement the importance, right, and the relevance, and it just helps build that culture within the team as far as what we're trying to achieve.
Okay. Do you want to explain the differences between mission and vision real quick?
Sure. Okay. And so a mission statement is what you're trying to achieve for your clients or for your customers, is what your mission statement is. Your vision statement is more, sometimes, and for us, it's more introspective. It's what we're trying to achieve as a team and how we want to view ourselves as a team for our vision statement.
Okay.
And then the value proposition is why are we different and what do we add to our clients' lives and to the public and to the people that we're working with?
Well, I'm curious.
And so those are kind of the three different areas as far as statements that we focus on.
So Plan with Baxter is different in which way? In what way?
So for Plan with Baxter, there's a couple of things that we try to be different on. We really want to work with people that are, kind of the movers and shakers in our community. They're giving back to the community. They're the business leaders. They're the people that are creating jobs. They're the people that are creating wealth. Right. And that's who we want to work with. And so part of that's our value. Our value proposition is that we have a very broad knowledge base across all the areas of the financial matters. But then we also are extremely deep in our knowledge base in a couple of really critical and key areas, which would be estate planning, investment planning, retirement planning, risk diversification and risk mitigation. And so there's a couple of areas that we're really, really strong at, and that's what we bring to our clients. In addition, and I'd mentioned this on a previous podcast that we're on, we've had people in our team that are currently with us. I mean, we've been here through, 8 different presidential administrations. Oh. We've been here through 6 different Fed presidents. Mm-hmm. We've been here through, probably 6 different recessions that were brought on by different causes. We've been here through, booms of technology and busts of the financial crisis. And so there's a lot of experience that we've been in. And on top of that, we've worked with hundreds and hundreds of families and business owners and executives in helping them to try and achieve their financial goals. And so it's very rare for us to come across a situation that we haven't encountered before.
Yeah.
And it's great to have that expertise because we can pull upon our experiences to help guide and coach you through things that you may not even realize that you're going through. As far as psychological, you may be reacting in certain ways. For instance, I joke that sometimes we have maybe 10 clients that always call us at market bottoms and want to sell, and always call us at market tops and want to buy, which innately we know is the exact opposite of what we all should be doing. But because we have this experience and knowledge, and we can recognize that fairly quickly, and we understand the psychology that they're going through, and we can help talk them through that emotional dynamic that they're experiencing so that they don't kind of self-harm themselves financially through these different market cycles.
Yeah.
Once we get that established, once we get the mission statement, vision statement, value proposition, who we are, then we go into past goals. So we review what did we set as goals last year, and then what is the year in review. And this was one thing that I hadn't seen before, and I love where Rex will go through each advisor, right, and the practice as a whole, and say, all right, who were the top, where was the top outflow of money and why? right? And we'll look and say, oh, well, this so-and-so bought a house. We can't really, that's just part of life. This person, had this come. And so we go through and say, where were the top places we lost money? And where were the top places we brought money in from? Mm-hmm. Was it a client referral? Was it from a 401k plan that came to us, right? So we can understand what is coming and going. And so anyway, Rex, if you want to kind of talk about, the past goals and year in review.
Yeah, as we go through that, I think it's really important as financial advisors, or if you're an accountant or an attorney, to understand where you've been successful. And a big part of that is dissecting, for us, we're looking again at where clients have moved money out and where clients have moved money in, or new clients and things like that. And so we're looking for patterns to see if is there something we should have done or could have done differently to retain clients or to retain assets or keep things working with us. Mm-hmm. Somebody's going to buy a house, that makes sense. They should be doing that. There's nothing that we need to do on our end to change that pattern. All of a sudden, somebody decided to go and invest a bunch of money in a fly-by-night company that their favorite nephew started up. Okay, we probably need to have a discussion with clients more regularly about investing with family and the risks and things like that. Do have the discussion is, I'm sure, what you meant.
Yeah. That's what I meant.
So I'm looking for patterns, and so but the only way to recognize those patterns is to go through, in detail what's happening on kind of those big money movements in and out. So we look at that. We look at who were our top, 10 clients for the year. And when did we get them, and how did we get them, and how long have they been there? And I'll tell you, it's really hard for a new client to crack into my top 10. My top 10 have been with me for a long time. They're very large and significant clients.
I'm just happy to be there.
We're glad to have you there too. So, but every now and then one will crack in, and it's exciting, and we want to understand how that happened and who it was and where it came from, because we want to repeat it.
Yeah.
Right? You want to, as a business owner, you want to try and replicate those top clients the best you can. And so we want to look at that. We want to look at, did we lose any clients, and why did we lose them? Well, somebody passed away and we were able to retain some of the kids, but maybe not all of the kids. And so maybe we needed to do a better job of having those family discussions earlier in age, so that we build those relationships so those families can continue on down through their legacy with our team's legacy.
So Rex, with your year in review, and I think it was called an IDP when I was an executive, an individual development plan. That would be something that, say, Brandyn would do on his own and then give to you, or actually present to you on how he could improve for the next year based on what he did on the last year. And then you would rate like, oh, I agree with you on this strength, and I agree with you on this weakness, and this is the needs of improvement, and this is where you do you do stuff like that in your year in review?
So not in the business plan. We don't necessarily do that. We will talk about different kinds of marketing and things like that we've done and what's been successful. And so we'll look at each advisor and say, okay, how are you marketing to clients? Are you just asking for referrals? Are you just networking with other professionals? Are you going to networking meetings? Are you holding seminars and workshops? Are you, what are you doing? And has it been successful or not? So we'll dig into each one of those events. And if you're not being successful at that, then why are we doing it again and again and again? Right? And so I think that's the definition of insanity.
Well,
right?
I can see Rex just saying what are you doing?
Are you out of your ever-loving mind?
But that's not how you mean it.
I would never do that.
Honestly, it's a lot more methodical, right? Because we don't make a decision without thinking it through. And if we get to the end of a year, in fact, we were just talking about this in this year's business plan, we get to the end of the year and we're like, well, that didn't work as well as we thought it would. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't necessarily mean we just cut it. Right. Yeah. And so we rethink it. Was it just kind of luck of the draw? Yeah. Was it, do we give it one more year? And so I think not being too knee jerk about decisions is a really important thing.
I have a really good question.
Yeah.
And this is based off of the NFL season winding down. And coaches getting fired. And at the beginning of the season, everyone's going to win the Super Bowl. Everyone's a winner. And and even I think week 1, I think the Patriots beat somebody, the Chiefs, I don't know who, they beat somebody. And then now the Patriots coach no longer has a job, Yeah. And so at the beginning of the year with your business plan, you're like, this is going to be the greatest year ever. Like, we're going to win the Super Bowl. And then things happen. And this is related to the question, like, how do you stay on track? But that's true. Like, how do you stay on track through the season, through the year? Because things happen.
Things do happen. Life happens. And so that comes down to the way that we do track things. And we track the goals, we track the marketing, we track how we're getting new business versus retaining existing business. And sometimes we need to pivot because something's not working or something's working really well. Sometimes we need to pivot because there's just a great opportunity that we want to take advantage of. And we see an opportunity and we say, okay, let's sponsor this event because it's going to help us with our branding. It's going to help us rub shoulders with those that we want to be rubbing shoulders with, things like that, and start to develop some of those other relationships. And so that comes down to us tracking our weekly progress is what that comes down to, and our monthly progress on some of the marketing things.
And our service model. How are we taking, what is our day-to-day? How are we taking care of clients, and how are we making sure that we, meet all of our obligations? And I think that's true of any business, right? Is that you've got your day-to-day. What are we doing every day, day in, day out? How do we make sure that we provide the best service possible? And then you have the marketing side of how do we make sure we keep growing.
The tricky part on business plans in my mind is that there are things you can control, which you want to make sure that you have a plan for. And there are things that you can't control, especially in our business. We can't control if the market's up or down, right? And yet the market, I know.
It's like, don't they control the animals in Yellowstone? Like, come on.
You're one of those guys that walks up to the bears. Huh?
I honestly feel like somebody just took a pin to a big old hot air balloon and just popped it. Sorry for all of those that you believe differently. Let me reiterate, we cannot control nor predict the markets.
Yeah.
And so our revenue is directly dependent upon how the markets do. If the market is down a bunch, our revenue is more likely than not going to be down.
Yeah.
Right? If the market is up strong, our revenue more likely than not will be up.
Oh, so you are cheering for up markets.
We are cheering for up markets. We are cheering for you to perform on your goals. And so it directly aligns us with you.
Yeah.
But because of that, we try and track the things that we can control. I mean, we track it all. We track the things that we can't control, but our weekly goals and accountability are on those things that we can control. It doesn't make a lot of sense for every week for you to be held accountable for something that you can't control. You can track it, and that's great, and you should do that. But you absolutely need to be held accountable for the things that you can control. You can control in our business, you can control, for the most part, how many clients you meet with in a week. You can control, for the most part, how many phone calls you make in a week. Right? And so those are the kinds of things that you can control as your activities.
Okay. Patriots beat the Bengals in week 1.
Did they really? Is that who it was?
Yeah, Bengals didn't make the playoffs, but they were really good late. And had they made the playoffs, that would have been fun to watch.
It would have been fun to watch Dalton. Yeah. Isn't it Dalton that's the quarterback there?
Yeah, the quarterback. Yeah.
So once we get the past year in all reviewed and we feel really good about, our goals and what happened, then we go to the current state of the business. It's like Rex's State of the Union type of thing.
Yeah, so on the State of the Union, we're looking at a lot of our statistics on what's our business made up of, how are things structured, how's our service model working. We're looking at just, are we healthy as a business? Are we getting returns from our portfolios that we need to be getting? Are we maximizing the meetings with our clients as far as making sure that we're hitting on all the areas of their financial life that we need to be hitting on? Are our reviews solid? Are our financial plans solid as far as what we're including in them and what we're going over in the financial plans with the clients based upon the sophistication of those clients? And so that's the part where we're making sure that from a business standpoint, we're hitting on all the levers that we need to be hitting on for the current state of a highly effective and efficient practice.
And celebrating the little wins, like just crossing $500 million in assets under management. I mean, that was a really big, you know, and hey, thank you. That's really good. So once we get to the current state of the business, kind of, you know, we've reviewed that, then we go into future goals.
Yeah, future goals. I start at the top and work my way down. So I start looking at what kind of revenue are we tracking towards for the year. And again, we can't necessarily control that, but we can influence it. Yeah. And so what kind of revenue?
Do you do that as a percentage, or is there like a number you're looking?
We're looking at hard numbers.
Hard numbers. Okay.
Yeah, we're looking at hard numbers. We're looking at, you know, how much do we have in assets under management? How much we want to do 10% better than last year. Right. You're looking at a hard number. But we'll do a hard number on that 10% or whatever the percentage is that we're doing. Right. We're looking at how many clients per advisor are we managing. And because we want to make sure that our clients are highly served. And so we believe that, you know, an advisor can only serve so many clients before that service starts to degrade and starts to go down. And so we want to make sure that head count is a good ratio.
What's that number?
And a good number.
5,000.
It is less than 5,000. Good. And so I think it depends on the advisor and what other responsibilities they have on the team.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
And so I think it varies based on where they're at and what they're trying to do.
Okay.
Most of the numbers I see typically range from 100 clients to 200 clients typically. Okay. And so when you start hearing of an advisor that personally is serving 800 clients, you have to wonder where you're at in that ranking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you ever going to get a phone call back?
Right.
But that's where this goes back into more of the traditional business planning, right? As we say, all right, wow, we've got a lot of great clients, you know, and we've got these assets under management, but how do we grow? Well, you know, we might need to start adding other advisors, you know, and what does that look like? Who do we know? You know, how are we gonna structure this so that it's a very smooth ride for our clients, so that we can make sure our clients are very well taken care of, while also allowing the company to grow and to hit those goals that we have for it. And so I don't think there's an easy or a perfect answer there, but being able to consciously work through that can really be beneficial. And to be aware of it, so that our brains can just kind of be working on that while we sleep, you know, like, all right, how do I get there? How do I, you know, and I know for me personally, even this morning, right, I kind of woke up and was like, I need to run this. I want to know where I'm at this way, right? And your brain's just constantly kind of working through numbers of, all right, where am I at? And where do I need to get to, you know, to hit my goals?
Okay. I think we have to be aware of that, especially in advance, because it takes some time, right, to get somebody licensed, registered, trained, fluent in our business and in our systems and our culture. And so, you know, there were about 4 years ago, I knew that we would need to add a younger advisor at some point, either last year or this year. And so last year we added an advisor to our team, Jake Ritter. He'll be on our podcast at some point later this year. He's got about 5 years in the business. And so he's doing great and a great addition for us. But then I also know that in about 3 more years, we're going to need another advisor. And so we ended up hiring another piece to our puzzle on the administrative side, to where he's licensed, and we're excited to have Tanner on board with us. And so he's licensed, and he'll be in that administrative role hopefully for a couple of years, and then we'll start migrating him into the advisory role in about 3 years. And so we're mapping that out, you know, multiple years in advance to make sure that our clients don't see or feel any interruption in service, anything like that. Because one of the most important parts of our business plan is making sure that we keep that back door shut, so to say, the proverbial back door, because it's much easier to keep and retain a client than it is to get a new one.
Yeah.
And so that's the number one part of our service model. And so our business plan, as far as our future goals and the current year goals, almost always our service model takes center stage. And that's where we start on the goals, as far as how often are we meeting with clients? And is it Is it asset related? Is it need related? Is it financial planning related? And it's going to be customized based upon every individual client's needs as far as how often and the frequency. Obviously, we can meet with them and talk to them anytime that something comes up. They can always call us. They can always get on our calendar. But proactively, if it's not on my calendar, typically it doesn't happen.
Yeah. Brandon, you have some more numbers for us?
Yeah, right. You bet. So the kind of an interesting one.
Yeah, maybe we just start some more numbers with kind of an interesting one.
Maybe we just do a S'more Numbers podcast and only do a podcast full of S'more Numbers.
Of kind of interesting S'more Numbers.
You know, that actually might not be so bad.
It might not be. Because then we just discuss. Okay, Brandon, let's do that. Put that together.
So this is
kind of interesting. I like
for
that.
Auto loans. One thing that we track is loan delinquencies. How often of all the auto loans out there, how often are they delinquent? And you might ask, well, why do you do that? Right? Like that, what does that have to do with the stock market? And what it shows us is stress levels on the consumer. Yeah. It's important to recognize and remember that there are different types of consumers, right? And different consumers will drive different sections of the economy. But one that we look at is auto loan delinquencies, and this is from the New York Federal Reserve. The 90 plus day auto loan delinquencies are now at 4.6% of total balances, which is actually high. That's the highest actually since. And
this is a current number?
Yep. That's the highest since quarter 4 of 2011. And so we're seeing those auto loans come up. Now, all humans want to jump to conclusions, right? And say, what does that mean? Does that mean a recession? Does that mean, and I think there's a lot of things, as is usually true, right?
People are tapped.
Higher interest rates. Yeah. You might have a little bit more stress on the consumer. You might have a certain demographic of consumer that's overly stressed, because that is happening right now. And so it's interesting, right? And that's why it was a smaller number, I guess.
It isn't. No, it is interesting. And does it correlate when the number's low if the economy is good? I mean, you'd think it would.
Yeah.
But
do we know? Usually we see that correlation.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's not necessarily the economy so much as it is, jobs and income growth. But then you also have, debt load that consumers have, which right now, ironically, the debt load on consumers is actually fairly healthy. I know that you don't necessarily get that when you listen to the news, right? They're like all-time credit card highs, and that's true. But relative to income, it's actually in a pretty healthy state. But when you start to see like auto loan delinquencies start to rise, then you have to double take, right? And say, all right, what's going on there?
I think there's a Progressive commercial, and they say something like, "Oh yeah, it's the economy," and then the kid asks like, "What's the economy?" and they don't know how to answer the question. It's made up of this lot of things, and they try. I don't know what it is. But when we do say economy, that doesn't necessarily mean or bad economy. That doesn't necessarily mean a bad market, because last year the market did pretty good.
Yeah.
And so, but that doesn't mean people, like you said, of a certain demographic are also not struggling. So,
right.
As well.
In addition to that, some of these things are more lagging indicators and some are more leading indicators, if you will.
And sorry, I said demographic, but really it doesn't matter. I mean, if you're overspending and you're overspending, you're in trouble. It doesn't really matter.
Right.
How much you make.
Sometimes it's just easier to pick up the overspending in some of these statistical numbers. Right. And so people that are taking out auto loans are typically certain demographics. Mm-hmm. And so if they're struggling a little bit more at those demographics, then it can be a warning sign or an early warning sign, or it can be an indication that 2 years ago we had high interest rates, high inflation, the highest used car to new car pricing relationship that we can think of in recent history. And so you start dealing with higher prices, higher interest rates, and then a year or two later, all of a sudden we're getting a little bit higher delinquency rates.
Yeah.
Right. And so you just need to kind of look at that, not in a vacuum, and look at that in relationship to, well, where are we at in credit card debt? Where are we at in home delinquencies, in mortgage loan delinquencies, and start looking at kind of the overall picture of where we're at. And right now I feel like we're actually pretty healthy.
Yeah. Overall, it's the auto delinquencies. And that's why you have to look deeper into it. And one thing, a really important thing to realize is there's been a very significant change in narrative over the last couple of years. If we were talking 4 years ago and a client said, hey, should I take out a loan and buy a car at 3%? Or should I pull money out of my investment account? I would have had that conversation of where's the break even, and probably, if you're comfortable with the risk, probably makes sense to take a loan. Yeah. But now when clients are calling me, that conversation goes the other way, right? If they say, hey, I can do a 7% interest rate, or I can just take money out of my investment account, well, that's a whole different calculation. And so now you've got an entire demographic that would have been good on the loan anyway. Right now, instead of taking out loans, they're just paying for it with cash out of investment accounts. Mm-hmm. And so now your ratios are all skewed.
Oh, interesting.
And so it's really important that you never act on just one ratio. Yeah. And we see it all the time, right? People are like, inverted yield curve, And
you mean the numbers can be deceiving at times?
It's the weirdest thing that people can use numbers to prove things.
What?
I know.
Breaking all kinds of stereotypes here. So, very good. Anything else on how to build a business plan before we break the show here?
I think the next thing, I think there is. I think I want to go into just for a second, kind of the tracking. So once we set our goals, and we've set the goals for the upcoming year, then we need to take that next step of tracking and accountability. And so, we've got our yearly goals. Well, how does that break down to monthly goals? And how does that, and then do those make sense to break down to a weekly goal or not? And some do and some don't. Mm-hmm. And then what do we need to do on a weekly basis in order to support or achieve that goal, right? What activities need to happen? And that's the last part of the business plan that a lot of people just skip over and don't do. And that's why so many business plans are static and gathering dust by the end of the year. And they brush them off. And they're like, check, I hit. Minus, I missed. Check, I hit. And it's just random whether they hit it or not, because they were going to do what they were going to do regardless of what the business plan was.
Interesting. So, Rex, what's your track history then? And you'll have to brag a little bit about because the success that you've had building your business from using a business plan like this. So, because people might think, well, yeah, but what does he know? He talks a big game, but actually,
So I'm not going to use hard numbers or anything like that. I will say that I feel like we've been one of the most perennial, most successful teams, certainly within our branch, and our branch covers the state of Utah.
About 21 advisors.
About 21 advisors. And I feel like we're certainly one of the top in our region with Ameriprise. Mm-hmm. And our region covers currently about 220 advisors, give or take. And I would say, Ameriprise as a whole has about 10,000 advisors around that number. And I would say that the perennial, we're within the top, 5% or so. Yeah. Of advisors within the firm, as far as growth and achieving our goals and
retaining
clients. We're probably in the top 1 or 2% as far as retaining clients. Yeah. And so and some years we'll be top 1%, and some years we might be top 5. Kinds of things. But I think the consistency over our tenure puts us in that top 1% of advisors because of our business plan, and it's kept us on track. We're significantly more consistent on hitting those goals than the vast majority of advisors. And so and again, I have a hard time, patting my own back and bragging. So this is one of those rare moments where I'll take pride in it. And I really, take my hat off to our team, because it doesn't happen without Brandyn. It doesn't happen without Holly and Tanner and Jake and Pat and Shreya and the rest of our team. It just doesn't happen. And so, I can put together the best business plan in the world, And if my team doesn't buy into it and doesn't execute on it and work well together, it just doesn't make a lick of difference.
Oh, it's all their fault. Very good. Brandyn, anything else you want to say on building a business plan and working underneath someone who provides you a business plan every year?
Yeah, super cool. It was new for me, 5-6 years ago when I joined Rex, and I kind of laughed, right? Because I knew Rex. I was like, holy smokes, 31 pages! Like, you gotta be kidding me. But it really is. It's been a really insightful thing, and I think when you have that knowledge of what's going on, it makes it, once you understand what the ball of wax you're dealing with, it's so much easier to then figure out what you can tweak and what you can do. And then when we take it from there and make everything automatic and reoccurring and top of mind and change our processes and change our goals, and we keep those in front of us, it really has, tremendous amounts of success. Yeah. And I'm just glad I'm here for the ride.
Rex, have you tried to apply this to your family?
The family plan?
Family business plan?
I'm not sure I had planned on 7 kids to begin with, so I'm going to say no, that I don't have.
Okay. I was just curious. You all sit down and it's like, all right, here's what
all right, guys, this is how we did last year.
Yeah.
Growth, though. You focused on growth. You got 7 kids.
Oh, I love it. Well, thank you for listening to this podcast. I want to thank Rex Baxter, Brandyn Smith for being on the show this week. If you found value in this podcast, please subscribe to us on YouTube at Through the Pines. You can follow us on Facebook at Pines Podcast, and you can follow our Instagram at Pines_podcast. Or you can just give the Banyan Collective all your money, because we produce the show, and that's a lot of work. And so you can go to the buymeacoffee.com/Banyan Media, make it automatic, give us $10 a month, make our lives happy. You'll feel better about you. We'll feel better about us. It's a win-win situation. Thank you for listening to this episode of Through the Pines, reminding you to use yesterday's dollars to finance tomorrow's dreams.